This is Analog Spectrum. They put the hacky in hacky sack.
That is not going in the podcast.
Damn it.
All right, Analog Spectrum, back at you. This is Tony speaking. I'm with Doug.
Here I is.
He's here, and this is a podcast that you are now listening to.
Yes. This is a good one. I think it's going to be a good one.
I am really very interested in this, and I'm gonna, before we even get started, a little context for the listeners. Probably like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we've talked about this before, you know, we don't really go into a lot of stuff with a plan. And Doug called me up, and he asked me if I'd seen the movie Fantastic Voyage. And
1966?
67.
1966?
Is it 66?
That's the credits. That's what it says. But whatever.
Yeah.
Mid-60s. Let's call it mid to late 60s.
Yeah, something like that. And I said, no, I hadn't. And he commented, yeah, it's got Raquel Welch in it. And it won't make up a whole podcast, but we can maybe talk about it for like 15 minutes. And I said, hey, I got an idea. I'm a fan of Raquel Welch. Why don't we just pick 3 random Raquel Welch movies that we know, and we'll watch those 3, and we'll just kind of talk about those movies. And so it was just kind of like a throwaway idea. But I got to tell you, so the 3 movies we picked obviously was Fantastic Voyage, and then we picked Hannie Caulder, which was 1971. Mm-hmm. And unlike a lot of movies Doug mentions about me before in the past, I don't know who directed it. I kind of maybe know a little bit about the stars. I got busy. I didn't research these all that much.
Right.
And the third one was Mother, Jugs and Speed from 1976.
Right.
So we picked those 3 movies.
And not for any real reason.
No,
yeah,
not
just
well.
that was kind of random. Tony had one of them, so
Yeah, I owned Hannie Caulder. I actually when I got Amazon Prime and I got it on my TV, it was just a movie. I remember watching it as a kid, like on HBO when I was and I bought it.
Right.
Like for like $9 or something like that.
Yeah,
so now I have it forever.
Right.
And then the other one was Mother, Jugs and Speed. Very difficult to get, but for this podcast, I purchased the DVD for $20, and Doug and I shared it, and we watched it on the DVD. Which the DVD itself was surprisingly good quality for DVD. That I think is a rip. But
I thought the sound was off on that because I have a sound bar with a subwoofer, and it was blowing out my subwoofer.
Really? Yeah.
So I had to disconnect that and just listen to it through the TV speakers.
That's interesting.
It was fine, whatever. But like
so,
you said, I think it was a rip. But whatever.
Yeah, but I don't even know where to start with this now because and let me tell you, before we get too far into this, I had a fond memory of Hannie Caulder because I watched it on HBO. I actually went to go see Mother, Jugs and Speed in the movie theater with my brother. I would have had to been 9 years old.
Yeah,
and interestingly, that movie's rated PG,
right?
Which we'll get into that a little bit. But okay, go ahead.
Well, so all I was going to say is before we jump too far in, did you know? I think Raquel Welch is actually Mexican.
Is she?
Her real birth name is Jo Raquel Tejeda.
Really?
Yeah, and I just literally pulled this up on my phone as you were walking into the room to start the podcast.
Huh?
Born in Chicago.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, Jo Raquel Tejeda.
Yeah, it could be. I mean,
and she's in something like some movie that they did about Hispanic actors.
She could be Spanish. Yeah,
Spanish or Mexican. Yeah.
So well, and if you kind of think about Spanish Hispanic heritage is not like Caucasian. That man, it really just kind of runs the whole gambit on.
Well, yeah, I was going to say when you see her on screen in some films, she could pass for Middle Eastern. She could pass for Hispanic. She could pass for Caucasian, depending on how she does her hair and whatever else, So
right,
and makeup and stuff. But anyway, clearly a beautiful woman and all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a good place to start, like Raquel Welch, and we might as well just kind of like this podcast has the potential to be almost dangerous. I'm kind of
Tony's
curious.
dancing around it already.
No, well, not that. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, beautiful woman.
Yes,
I mean, honest. I watched her in these movies, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit too. Where like, okay, Hannie Caulder, I was like, makes my heart beat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Beat fast.
Well, let's do this. How about this? Because I had a discussion on the way over here with my wife because she watched all 3 of these movies with. And she just didn't want to participate in this particular podcast, but she has thoughts. And so we were talking about it, and I have some interesting stuff to talk about. But But let's go through the movies first.
Certainly.
And by the way, she has 66 acting credits.
Okay.
Which is pretty significant.
Sure.
I mean, a movie, it takes months, sometimes years to even make a movie. So,
yeah.
With 66, but she was in all kinds of TV shows, Seinfeld, and she was on the Muppets and
Love Boat.
All kinds of different stuff. So yeah, she's done a ton. So
sure.
good for her.
I mean, she was. There's actors and people that are famous like her that I just get the idea that like if you're around her. And clearly I'm crushing on Raquel Welch, but if you're around her, you're probably, just like, she just has it. She's got the it.
Yeah.
She's just, and her acting, the movies we watch her, and she's fine. You know what I mean?
She developed, for sure. She developed, sure.
But, so
let's start with Fantastic Voyage, because that's where the whole thing started.
Yeah.
I was really, I don't even know how this happened. I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch movies when you and I do stuff like this. If I find something good to watch, we'll watch it. But when it starts getting like blah, I just turn it off. You're not like you. I know you will. Like I got to watch this all to the end. I do not do that. I will turn a movie off halfway through if it sucks.
If it's
which
really
is what
bad,
I want to do with MASH, by the way.
I'll really tell you if it's really if it's really bad, I'll turn it off. Yeah. There's lots of movies I started and didn't stop because I thought it sucked. It just didn't interest me.
Right. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
So when I was just poking around. I think Elzeth was making dinner, so I can't remember. It was a really casual afternoon, evening time frame, and this popped up in my feed, and I thought, oh man, sometimes I really like watching like really shitty B movies.
Right.
Just that Mystery Science Theater 3000 syndrome, And so let's put this on and put it on, and I was very impressed with the graphics for the time.
Right.
Like the green screen stuff that they did in that movie had to be like massively ahead of its time.
Right. And just so anybody that's not familiar, and do we have to say spoilers? No.
Nah.
So Fantastic Voyage is about a individual who has knowledge. He ends up getting a head injury that causes a blood clot in his brain. And there is a government agency that has the ability to shrink people down to microscopic size. They shrink these people down to microscopic size.
Put them in a little submarine.
Inject it into this guy's body because the brain clot is otherwise inoperable. And they're gonna take the submarine through his body to the blood clot.
The early version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Well,
or what was that one with Richard Pryor?
Oh, I don't know.
Richard Pryor did one as well.
Did he? I know that Martin Short did one with
Interspace.
Interspace. Yeah.
So anyway,
but and this movie's been spoofed a bazillion times.
Yeah.
It's been spoofed, but that's the gist.
That's the gist. Yeah. And I didn't know any of this going in. I'm just like, whatever. It's a B flick from the 60s. Let's just put it on. But what initially I was laughing at first with some of the crappy scenes,
Sure.
And then when I realized like they're actually doing a pretty damn good job with the CG on this thing, man. And,
for 1966 or 7.
Yeah. And like wow. And so we started kind of getting into it at that point. And there's all kinds of fantastical stuff, hence the Fantastic Voyage. But in the background, when they're going through this guy's body, there's capillaries, and and they're explaining what you're seeing, and these weird globs of color, around the background, almost psychedelic 60s type stuff. But it fascinated me for some reason. I don't know why. I normally would have just shut it off, but then I realized that she was in it, and I said, let's just watch it,
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was super entertaining. I like just genuinely a throwback to a time when movies were. I don't want to use the word innocent because that's a little too strong of a word, but it was just a story. It was just clearly not even trying to be real. But it was fun. It was cool.
I think it was a movie of its time, and what I mean by that is like the generals, they're like, these salty generals in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to go get ready to roll your eyes.
Okay.
I'm a medical person. There's stuff in there. I'm just kind of like, nope. I mean, even for the time, I'm kind of like, nope. Yep. But I knew extension of disbelief. I can't, my wife is watching it with me. I'm not about ready to start going like, no, that's not where there's no valve going into the right atria. I wasn't going to get into that, but I thought it was a good movie for its time. There was things in it that were but I don't think it's aged well. I think it's kind of like for example, there's like a secret base underground. They go to this place. The car goes down in an elevator. It's supposed to be extremely secret. And once they get down to the bottom, it's like a shopping mall. There's people like everywhere. It's
that was pretty funny. Again, this is just picking on the movie.
Of course.
They drove those little golf carts.
Everywhere.
Right?
Yeah.
Everywhere. And they literally, I laughed at this. He drove so they had to get a secret agent guy to run security on this mission, So of course, it's drama.
That's the hero.
But they literally, the general drove right up to the escalator and they got off. They had to walk around the golf cart to get on the escalator. They left it right at the opening. I was like,
there's so much.
It's
in this
Austin
movie.
Powery kind of. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
there's so much about this movie. If you watch it through the lens of like 2022, 23, wherever we are now, it's ridiculous. But,
of course.
But you have to basically pull back and say it's a movie.
Compare it to what else was being made at the time.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, because Lost in Space and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, this is
predates that a little bit,
predates like it was, and they were making these movies up to like 76, 77 until Star Wars came along. They were just like this,
Yeah.
And the special effects were okay for the time. The acting was okay. I thought Donald Pleasance was great. I thought it was funny how Donald Pleasance was clearly like this atheist, and there was the guy with the laser, and he obviously was like, even though they didn't get into it too much, he was like doing all this poetry about how
the philosopher.
Oh God, it was just
it was
so
pretty
cringy.
painful.
So the movie itself, but as far as like interestingly, Raquel Welch, who must have just kind of started getting into her fame, she was second billed in this movie.
Yeah,
and her part was about as thin as they come. Yeah,
she was the assistant to the scientist.
Yeah, and they even kind of alluded to the fact that she was like crushing like on the 65-year-old doctor,
right.
And that was cringe. And I'm going to use the word cringe a lot in this podcast, by the way. That was cringy.
But she was like, she admired him for his intellect and his commitment to humanity and all that stuff, right? So it was as crushy as it was.
Yeah, it was just weird. I mean, it was whatever. Yeah. I mean, they didn't really say. I mean, there was no romance there.
Yeah, it was all.
But they kind of alluded to it. But she was the one that was like her part had nothing. It was just, she just was nothing.
She didn't do anything.
She probably had like 20 lines in the whole movie, and it was like, the laser is secured, doctor. Oh my gosh, you said you secured the laser. I did secure the laser. Her job was basically just to kind of be eye candy.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah,
so
a little bit of exposition.
Not very.
And then she had to be the victim for the hero because they saved her from the white blood cells
from the antibodies.
The antibodies. That attacked her.
But
which I thought that again, those special effects, all practical stuff.
Right.
It was super cool, man.
Yeah.
Whatever it was that. I don't know, like
the
crystallized seaweed is whatever.
No idea.
Yeah, but I mean, think about. I think about this from the perspective of there's some prop guys somewhere that have to come up with something that kind of looks at least like they want it to look like. And so, what the hell did they use, man?
I thought it was
cool.
Interesting.
Cheesy as hell, but I thought it was cool. Yeah,
and like I said, I don't want to get into the medical part of it. It's just,
but
it is one.
Well, guess what? You couldn't be a Death Star either. So
but at the end of it, they were like, we just want to thank all the doctors and medical physiology people that made this movie happen. And I'm thinking, well, they suck.
You should probably fire those people. Yeah.
Because they didn't get a lot of stuff right.
But so then moving on to Hannie Caulder.
Sure.
I was not familiar with this movie, and when you told me you had it and stuff, I was like, oh, let's check it. That's a Western. Psh, I'm in, dude. I'll watch almost any Western.
Oh, and before you go, let's tell people what it is. Woman gets sexually assaulted, raped.
Yeah, it's a rape revenge movie.
Yeah, by three. Yeah, rape revenge movie, right?
Yeah.
And it came out a little bit after like. Things like the Wild Bunch, Sam Peckinpah.
Right.
So it took a lot from that. But these three brothers, and you kind of follow her. She ends up connecting with this bounty hunter played by Robert Culp.
Who was great, by the way.
I was going to say the same thing.
That guy was awesome in that movie. Yeah.
He
was like Robert Redford without being Robert Redford.
Oh, God, he was so... I'm glad you said that. I'm glad we feel the same way. Because I watched that, and there was a scene in there where like she was trying to shoot the gun, and he comes up behind her, like shoots from the hip. Yeah. And like the way he just looked... I'm just like, dude.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Dude, you're like, oh my God.
Gunslinger.
Yeah, you're so awesome.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah. And so and the three brothers, and then she goes and she kills them. Yeah,
right. So I will have to say the opening scene is I don't remember the actor's name. I could probably look it up, but I'm too lazy. He's the dude with the big googly eyes. One of the three brothers.
Oh yeah, Jack Elam.
Oh, that guy was. Oh, I love that dude in all the Western movies I ever saw him in. Always played the best bad guy.
Can I say the three brothers were great?
Oh, they were awesome.
They were awesome.
Oh, yeah. Ernest Borgnine. Yeah, come on, dude. Come
Ernest
on.
Borgnine, Strother Martin, and Jack Elam. I think
Yeah.
it's Jack Elam. And Elam is his last name. And God, babe, Strother Martin was amazing.
He was great.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to, I'm just very excited.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah,
Yeah, but I love the fact that like they're supposed to be like bandits, and they're terrible at it.
They're horrible.
They're horrible at it.
They screw up everything.
Everything they screw up, right?
Rob banks, blow up all the money.
But there's lines in there like Strother Martin is just, I'm laughing. I love the fact that he goes, she says something like, our pa would never have put up with this. And Ernest Borgnine goes, well, you shouldn't have shot him. And then they're like, and he goes, Mike, I was cleaning I was cleaning the gun. Cleaning my gun, and it actually went off, and I shot him in the head or something. And then she goes, and every day I think of his face, and Jack Elam says, what's left of it? Yeah. And it was just really sharp lines.
But the other thing is, like, and again, this was, I'm sure, 100% on purpose. All they did was shout at each other. They did. All the time they communicated, they screamed at each other.
Oh, they were on the verge of killing each other.
Yeah, the whole time. So anyway so it was almost comical, that whole relationship. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
in the best ways possible.
Yeah. But I think one of my favorite scenes in there is after they raped Raquel Welch, and then they drank they killed her husband, raped her. Yep. And then they drank a bunch of whiskey, and they were drunk going out to their horses about to move on, after being so callous and stuff. And what was his name in the movie, the brother that shot the dad?
Rufus, that
was it. So Rufus is the last one out of the building, and she lived in this little Spanish-style house on the middle of nowhere in the plains or whatever, a little adobe house.
Yeah, grass.
And he's he comes out with a lantern, and he lights his cigar, and he's super casual, just tosses a lantern through the window to burn the house down. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was like this awesome reveal of the character of how psychopathic he really is. Like he didn't care. Like she could burn, she could not burn. He didn't really care.
Right.
He was just off his way. But anyway. Yeah. So I thought that was real good, and all the scenes in town when they were back and forth in town were real good. Right. But her stuff, there was some problems with, she didn't bother to have anything but that Mexican blanket,
the sirapa.
Yeah. But she did end up wrapping her feet. So of course. That was the producers were going like, okay, we can't have Raquel Welch walking through the desert barefoot. Yeah. So they wrapped her feet with some cloth or something. It wasn't actually shoes, but anyway. So it's a small thing, but I caught that. But yeah, I thought she did pretty good. Her acting in that scene, and then when she met the gunslinger guy, I thought was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. You mean the bounty hunter?
The bounty hunter, yeah.
Yeah, Robert Culp. Thomas is his name, yeah.
So when she met him, that whole scene, when she was still like really vulnerable, that was all really good. But then when you go beyond that, I think she transitioned. Like her confidence was supposed to have grown as a character, and all that. But I think she transitioned, which is good credit to her for being an actress and making that obvious. But it got boring to me at that point. From her perspective, I started liking the other characters much better, like the gunsmith. Right, I really liked that guy. He was a great character.
Christopher Lee played the gunsmith.
Yeah, he was a great character.
Yeah,
and but yeah, overall, I thought the movie was great. There were obviously one scene that you and I briefly discussed was when she had to go buy a pair of pants because she showed up with this dude with nothing but the blanket.
Right.
He gave her some money. She bought some pants and they made it a very strong point for the shopkeeper to come out and say, I'm sorry we didn't have your size, but if you just get them wet and keep them on till they're dry, they'll fit you like a glove. Of course, the next scene cut, Raquel Welch stands up out of a bathtub with her wet pants on and super close up on her butt, and she grabs her own butt to see if the pants fit right, and that whole sex symbol thing started to kick in,
They did that on purpose, obviously.
Obviously.
And for the longest time, she wore that,
blanket with
blanket
nothing.
over.
You can.
A poncho kind of set up like a poncho. Yeah. And she was, and she had nothing on underneath it. There was no nudity in this movie at all, really.
Right. But you could tell, yeah.
Yeah, but they played it up. I was joking with my wife about this, with Melanie, that when she first comes across Thomas, right? And I cannot overstress, just to kind of go back, just to talk about what Doug said. Robert Culp nailed that character, man.
Yeah,
it was
great.
so good. But he's got a bounty. He's got this dead and of course I think she ends up with the horse and also the guy's hat. And I was like, man, that hat looks really good on Raquel Welch.
Yeah.
It really does. That hat is like very fortunate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
and,
no doubt. Yeah, she was, they really, this was, probably 5 or 6 years after the first movie we watched.
Yeah.
And they had really gotten good at making her look beautiful on camera without all the little tricks.
She was stunning in that.
The lighting was great in terms of like how they light her and stuff.
Yeah.
Was very good. They didn't do that like super soft focus thing like they did in Fantastic Voyage.
Yeah. And this was her movie. This was her movie. And what I liked about it was she had a really clear arc.
Mm-hmm.
The bounty hunter Thomas that she partnered up with, they had a great relationship. It kind of, it definitely was romantic, but I don't know how far the romance went because I can't remember.
They alluded to like true love, lifelong romance type romance rather than just a roll in the hay romance, right?
Yeah, he definitely.
So it was like real genuine.
He saw past her beauty and liked what he saw, and vice versa.
Yes.
So I like that. Like right now, and here we go into a little bit of controversy. There's kind of this thing in Hollywood where women can't be rescued. There's a male in the movie, especially if it's like a white heterosexual male. Usually he'll be somewhat subservient to the female character. Also, whatever he's good at, she's equally good at. And in this movie, better. But in this movie, all her abilities, traits, and so forth, she was a very, very strong heroine in this movie. I mean, but she wasn't.
Not in the beginning.
Not in the beginning, but by the time
end,
she became a gun, she was good with a gun too, which was just fun to watch. But she wasn't. She had the positive traits that you would expect to see in a strong female character,
right?
And he was her equal, but different. Right.
So I'll explain. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'll explain. This is how I explained this to Elzeth when we were briefly talking about it, and that was that I think she developed a liking for him because he treated her just like he would treat anybody else.
Right.
That needed to learn how to shoot a gun. Like at first he said no, of course, and then she was begging him, and she offered to sleep with him and all that stuff, and he kept turning her down. He's like, no, that doesn't interest me. But then when he finally realized that she was going to go and do this with or without him, he thought, well, shit, I might as well just teach her, right?
Right.
But when he was teaching her, it wasn't mansplaining, for one, right?
Right.
But for two, he wasn't unnecessarily difficult with her. He was just honest and genuine with her, and he taught her how to shoot. And if it would have been anybody else, he would have taught them kind of that same way, right? So, in other words, he actually respected her as a person. Right.
Yep.
And so to me, this is, and we'll get more about this in Mother Jugs and Speed, is that was like that initial sort of women's rights, women's movement stuff in films that actually got it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
yes.
If and then I'm projecting here, I guess, but if I was a female and I was looking for equality, that's what it would look like in my eyes.
Right.
Right. He didn't give me anything for free just because I'm a chick.
Right.
But he also didn't make it extra difficult for me and just brush me aside.
I agree. No.
So that's where I thought their relationship really started to solidify.
Sure. Well, and you made a good point. You think about like The Last Jedi, right? We had Luke Skywalker training Rey, right? It was, he didn't really have anything to teach her. It was very weird. It was a quote unquote subverting expectations. If they could go back and do it again, the way he taught her how to be a gunslinger, that Ryan Johnson should have watched this, and that's the way Luke Skywalker should have taught Rey to be a Jedi. I mean, it was, like to your point exactly. Gender had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it was mutually respectful.
He just knew that he had to do it.
Yep. And then she listened to him because she respected his abilities. He was
great. He was amazing at what he was. He was great at killing people.
Yep.
But he, and like there was a few lines in there like I think she asked him, "You kill people for money?" And he says something like, "Is there is there another reason?
Yeah, is there another reason to kill people?
Yeah, it's a good a reason as any.
Yeah, exactly.
But I didn't like about this movie, and like you, it was a Western. It had that Sam Peckinpah vibe. I thought the three brothers were amazing. I thought Robert Culp was amazing. I didn't like the gunslinger guy at the end. I thought that was a cop out.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And there was a gunslinger that showed up at the end, and I'm not going to tell you what happens, only because this is not a movie that people watch very often. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. Yeah. But there's a gunslinger that pops up, and okay, so let's leave it there. Let's move to Mother.
Yeah. So moving on to Mother, Jugs and Speed. Yeah. Like you, I remember this film from the 70s. I didn't go see it in the movie theater. I don't think. But I probably saw it at some point. I just couldn't remember it. Mm-hmm. This is going to sound weird, but the very first thing that I noticed when I started watching it was Bill Cosby was not in the credits.
He was the very first person they announced.
He was not.
We'll go back and look.
Go back and look. I rewound it.
You mean the credits at the beginning?
Yep.
We'll go back and watch.
They don't title him, which I found to be really weird. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't credit him. So,
I think they did, but we're going to go back and watch.
Okay, we'll go back and check.
We have the video.
I actually rewound it. And I didn't see him. Maybe I didn't rewind far enough. Maybe he really was the very, very first one. But
I think he was. I think Raquel Welch was number 2. But let's.
Okay, yeah.
But that would be interesting because of everything that's happened with Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
And so everybody, again, if you haven't seen this, the movie is called Mother, Jugs and Speed,
right?
And the title. And why it's the title will kind of give an indication of the world we lived in 1976.
Yes.
Mother was the Bill Cosby character. It's about a independent ambulance company, and it doesn't. I think it says it's L.A. It's in L.A.
Yeah, it's in L.A.
But it doesn't say exactly where. I mean, L.A. is a big city, but the independent ambulance company that they get called. I don't even know if they they go out and they go ahead.
I was going to say, it's if you could imagine like a sleazy used car dealer,
yep,
and how he would run his business and on the verge of unethical,
right?
That was basically how this guy was running the business, but it was an ambulance business,
exactly. And so there was a guy named Fishbine, the F&B, the F&B ambulance company, and Mother was one of the best ambulance driver he had. Mother was Bill Cosby, and the reason he was called Mother is because he took care of everybody.
Yeah.
Jugs was Raquel Welch because they called her Jugs because of her breasts,
big boobs, yeah,
which is crazy. And Speed was the Harvey Keitel character. He was the new kid, which was kind of interesting seeing a young Harvey Keitel.
I know, he was so young.
And they called him Speed because he had gotten put on probation at the police force for selling speed.
Yeah.
And drugs. So they called him Speed. So Mother, Jugs, and Speed.
Right.
Bill Cosby, Raquel Welch character, and Harvey Keitel. And really all it is there's no real story or arc here. It's just about what's going on. And
it's like a slice of time.
And this ambulance company. I mean, things do happen, but nobody really has an arc or anything like that.
Yeah. No, there was no character development whatsoever.
Nothing at all. Yes.
And then so I will say that the very first comparison I wanted to make was MASH.
Yeah.
For that very reason.
Right.
It was exactly the same as that. It was just somebody gave these guys money, had a terrible script in their hands. Right. They got some relatively famous people to play these things, and they sold the thing, and they made money probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought Bill Cosby was good in this.
He was.
Yeah, I thought he was. In particular, I think he had 2 scenes in there that were just, to me, really, really good. And one was... as the story goes along, Raquel Welch plays Jugs, and she's basically the switchboard operator, and she calls the ambulances and tell them, go pick up somebody here and there, whatever, code 3.
Yeah.
And then so everybody's wondering what happens to her in the evenings after work because she's beautiful and they all want to date her and she won't date anybody and whatever. Right. So she's been going to school to become an ambulance driver. Mm-hmm. So and she gets her license, ambulance driver's license or whatever the hell they want to call it. EMT certification. Something,
yeah. 1976, who the hell knows?
Yeah, who knows what it was. But then so she goes to the boss and says, that's it, I'm not your secretary no more, I'm going to drive. And he said, no way, we can't have a woman driving, da-da-da. And Bill Cosby's like, no. This is women's rights, man. You got to let her drive. And so the guy assigns her to Bill Cosby. He goes, oh, wait. You could drive, but you can't drive in my ambulance.
Right.
So, and so I thought the hypocrisy of that was awesome, right?
Right.
Obviously, unfounded, but it was cool.
Right.
And then the other scene where a woman, after she got her own little gig as an ambulance person, they delivered a baby, and both the mother and the child passed.
The mother
away.
didn't die. I mean, the child didn't die. Child didn't die. Mother died.
Okay.
Yes,
I thought they both did.
Maybe.
I don't know, but it's irrelevant. But
yeah.
So she was. That's it. She quit, and she was heartbroken, and she was at home licking her wounds. And Bill Cosby comes by, and that speech was the man. I mean, people nowadays need to listen to that because it was a reality. Basically, what he said to her is something along the lines of, "You choose this profession, you got to take the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Right.
You got to deal with this, right? Because this is not." Well, you don't just get to pick the easy stuff to do.
He was speaking towards the fact that she was a woman, and she was basically, she had played the woman's card,
right?
And she had been given and now that she'd been given that, now you have to take the lumps.
Now you got to take to take the responsibility. You got to take the weight. You got to take the bad shit that comes along with it. Yeah. And so those two scenes in particular from Bill Cosby, I thought were really good.
And a few things. Well, the interesting thing about this movie is it jumps between like lighthearted comedy and like holy shit dark moments,
some heavy stuff
like that, like at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. When his partner gets shot.
Bill Cosby's partner gets shot. That's how he ends up with Speed in his ambulance. Is the fact that his partner gets shot by and man, again, a PG movie. And you got the drug overdoses, his partner getting shot, lots of blood. PG was a different thing.
Yeah, it was
in 1976.
Which, by the way, I want to tell you. So, if anybody hasn't seen this movie and you might have grown up like, let's say you're 40 or maybe
50 or something, yeah.
Less than 50.
Okay.
Let's say you're in your 40s and you don't remember the 70s. Watch this movie and that scene where they show up to collect. It's early in the film when they show up to collect the stiff who overdosed, and that chick is sitting there listening to Frampton, just like zoned out. God almighty, did that flash me back to the 70s, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew so many people that lived that way.
Right.
I mean, that was what you did. Recreation
at
that time was getting high and just zoning out and listening to whatever music happened to be Frampton.
Right.
But that scene, like, wow, it was just like a whammo flashback to my brother and his friends. And it was like, whoa.
Yeah, I will. So
it was relevant for the time, of course.
This of the 3 movies, this is the one I am having the hardest time with, man. Mm-hmm. Because as a kid, I remember just thinking, God, that's such a great movie. I remember, like, for example, like the opening scene where they're playing like the disco music and they're showing the ambulance and it burns. It's got those white crater mags, which is also. Which, by
the way, if anybody has seen this, they have it's like a Chevy super van or something, and it's all painted real cool. It's got cool rims on it. And, it's just totally 70s.
Yeah, totally 70s. Like those white Kragers.
Yep.
Boy.
Yep.
And it burns out,
yep.
and it's driving, and they're driving through the street, and his ambulance partner is going like, on your right, and it's
you're clear, go. Yep.
Go, and he's just going with the reds, the reds and blues on, and the siren for no reason. He's wearing like the fingerless gloves. I remember as a kid thinking that was so cool, and I watched it again. I'm thinking, ooh, it's so cheesy. So
because Madonna picked that up.
Yeah, well, so of the 3 movies, if I was to say 1, 2, 3, this would be number 3.
Oh, absolutely. This movie was not good.
It was not good.
Yeah, it was not good. It had elements of it that I liked.
There were standout elements, but it was. Well, let's get into it. And the Raquel Welch character again. I think she did quite well with the script she was given. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think both with Hannie Caulder and with this one, I think she did fine with the material that she was given.
Yeah,
but. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and uncork this, okay? And we're going to get into this. We definitely live in a world right now where people are going like, well, these are the reason we have movies, like the whole, like we just talked about, like movies where, women are very powerful and they're kind of taking over the male role and all that kind of stuff, because now is their time. And then I watch a movie like Jugs and Speed and I'm thinking, okay, I kind of get it now, because that movie is like, and I am not this way, but I'm thinking, holy crap, man. Some of the things, I'm going to digress for a second. I thought Larry Hagman was great in it. Larry Hagman, yeah. He played like this sexist asshole douchebag. Yeah. But there's a scene like where he gets in the back of the ambulance to I guess, sexually molest or rape a girl, and like
she was dead, right? I'm pretty sure she was dead. She had just
she was
died.
dead or something. And like Harvey Keitel was like, like basically like kind of like, oh, you're sick. The fact that this guy didn't like lose his job over that or whatever is insane to me.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many parts of this where I watched and it's like, okay, the world, if this was the way it was, especially towards women in the 70s, holy cow, it was a fucked up world, man. Yeah. And I get it now. I kind of get it because there was things in that movie, the way they talked to her, the fact that they called her Jugs. I was like, oh my God. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that was a caricature of the times. I don't think that was really how things were.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Just back up to Hannie Caulder. I mean, it wasn't that way.
No.
Right? The mutual respect that those two developed. So it was just a caricature of the 70s. And, the Harvey Keitel character was overly good, wrongly accused cop.
Right. But even he
and
was
then the Hagman character was overly bad. Just an absolute
But even
asshole.
he, as the good guy towards her, was a freaking...
Only once, right at the end, when he got his cop job back, he said, "Yeah, go home. I like my lamb this way," and all that sort of stuff, right? Yeah, but
God,
I think he was messing with her. That's how I read into it, right? Because then shortly thereafter, she got the gig, and she was going to work, and then his response was, "How do you like your lamb?"
Right.
So he was going to go home and do the cooking. So I think it was a play. It was that making fun of exactly what you're talking about.
I hope so. Well, they
so.
did kind of allude to it, like after the fact that she. Well, next thing you know, she was in Mother's ambulance.
Yes.
And he goes, well, how do you like your lamb?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he was willing to take the the support role.
Yeah, and he was. It was so weird to see Harvey Keitel.
Yeah, being so young. But okay, so let me talk about this for a second because Elzette and I had this conversation because she was very she hated this film for that very reason. Why the way the women in the movie were talked to and all that stuff. But she didn't even like the Raquel Welch character because she noted that when Raquel Welch stole the ambulance and then the cops were chasing her, she called back to headquarters and said, "Hey, get those fake names and addresses and send me someplace." And it was Fishbine's wife who's like, "No, he would never do something like that." So in all of these characters, she was truly the only good character, right? So as soon as Raquel Welch gets into a pinch, boom, she defaults to sleazy like all the rest of these guys. Right. Whereas this guy's wife, who was a minor character in the film and was played almost slapstickish
he was.
as a character, was truly really like the only one with an actual decent moral compass. The rest of them were lost. But I think that in by itself is kind of a reflection of the 70s. And I would say that probably mirrors where we are today. That's my guess. But what I wanted to talk about was celebrity versus sex symbol.
Okay.
And I think just by happenstance, we picked these three films, and we got to watch Raquel Welch turn from a minor celebrity into a sex symbol through these three films. Because Fantastic Voyage, minor role. She was beautiful. They put her in there as a beautiful girl because they couldn't have a submarine with 5 dudes in it, right? That would be creepy.
And she was eye candy.
So she was eye candy, right? But she wasn't disrespected. She wasn't, none of that. But then you go to Hannie Caulder.
Well, real quick on that. It was interesting that they were like, there was that scene where the generals, and get back on Fantastic Voyage just for half a second. We digress.
Right.
Where I love the fact that you had these generals that were like, smoking cigars and they're drinking coffee out of the cowboy coffee pot.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going to end up in that body. It's just so, and one of them's like, no woman's going to go in the submarine. This is no place for women. This is not women's work. And like I said,
think about it. The script was probably written in 63 or 64.
Something like that, yeah.
You know what I mean? And by the time it got the green light and went through and all that stuff, when they make it and it gets released, that was the early 60s probably when all that crap was written. And it was, that was the attitude of a lot of people back then.
Sure.
But I will say also, not to defend these guys, but I would say that attitude was really just handed down to them and taught to them. And I don't think most of those people had like, oh, this is definitely the way it should be. They just this is the way it is, right? And they didn't want to rock the boat, right?
Well, and I think honestly that kind of was the world we lived in.
Yeah. It wasn't until the mid to late 60s when the hippies started turning all that crap on its head that no, I'm not.
No, dude, I'm with you.
Yeah, right. And that's when it all started changing. Anyway, so that's a whole nother podcast. Yeah. Hippies. We're gonna do a hippie.
You're freaking killing me.
Well, dude, I could do
all them goddamn hippies throwing that shit on their head.
No.
You're cracking me up.
No, I'm talking about hippies as in the real hippies, like the real actual hippies, because they actually had a pretty good idea. Oh, yeah. They just messed it up. And then and then what happened? I don't know. We can talk about this in another podcast. But I think that they got hijacked. Their message got totally hijacked.
Who's the hippies?
The hippies, yeah.
Okay.
Because truthfully, like, think about it, man. That's transcendent. Like, okay, we're all going to get along. We're all going to be happy with one another. It's all going to be cool, right? What was their motto? If it feels good, do it. Right? That was their thing. And so anyway, but let's save that for another day. But yeah, so I was thinking about, what if you're a celebrity? What do you got to do, right? As a lifestyle, you got to show up places. You got to get your picture taken, sign autographs, be nice to people, go on TV shows, right? But if you're a sex symbol, it's different. You have to live that always. You can't be seen without your sex symbolness showing, right? You can't roll out in a robe and slippers,
right? If you do, especially nowadays, you get ripped.
You're hosed, man. Yep. You're hosed. Yep. And I think it was probably the same back then. But so that makes me think, like, if you think about the fact that Raquel lived through all of that, and then is now on Seinfeld, and she's on the Muppets, and so she survived and managed to navigate that minefield of being a sex symbol, and turned into some, I guess you would call it, legitimate actress after living through that. Credit to her, man. You know, credit to her. Because the scene, we talked about that scene in Hannie Caulder where, she stood up and grabbed her own butt with wet pants on. It was like, holy crap, every dude in the audience was like, yeah, because it was like, that was blatantly obvious.
And for those listening, it wasn't hypersexualized.
No, not at all.
It wasn't. It was.
But she's shapely and beautiful.
Oh, God.
And they tantalized it just enough. You knew it was coming. Something like that was coming. And they showed her topless from the back. Yeah. So you knew she didn't have a top on, but that was as far as they went.
God.
And she stood up, and there's those leather pants, tight as anything, wet on her butt. And it's just like, man, that was...
Oh, my God.
That was
that's
good movie making, right?
It really was.
'Cause it elicits a great response out of the audience. Yeah, that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and it just was, it just fed into your own imagination.
Yeah, sold lots of movie tickets.
Oh God, I mean, I can't. I'm not to go, Raquel. Like, even when you talked about this, I mean, there are certain actors or women actresses, I guess, from the '60s that are just kind of like going to be forever. Like her, and Margaret's another one.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Anne Margaret, you got to look up Anne Margaret doing Jack the Knife. Look that up on YouTube.
Oh,
it was like a demo reel. She was trying to get a job.
Wow, okay.
And she did a thing. The old Sinatra tune, Jack the Knife.
Yep. Yep.
Oh man, you got like.
There's also one of her singing on Johnny Carson. I might show you that later.
Okay. Same
thing. Young Shirley MacLaine, for some reason, there was a couple of movies she was in that was like, anyway, but doesn't matter. But the point is that Raquel Welch is just one of those ones that when you mentioned her, I was like, oh gosh, yeah. I mean,
let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
Well, it's funny though, because the reason I bring up that sex symbol thing is not all sex symbols can make it all the way through that. They crash and burn. Marilyn Monroe,
Yeah.
It's a prime example. Like
Jane Mansfield. Well,
Mansfield,
she had decapitated, but yeah.
But no, the point is that they don't always come out the other end of that successful.
Yeah.
And Raquel was able to do that.
Well, and she seemed, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
she's smart. She's got good management.
She seems like
tenacious.
a good person. She seems like a good person.
Yeah,
she just does, So.
Yeah.
And But yeah, just kind of in summary though, well, how would you rate? Where would you put these movies? 1, 2, 3.
Hannie Caulder 1, Fantastic Voyage 2, and definitely Mother Jugs and Speed is the only reason that I liked it any better than MASH.
Right.
Because the characters were more likable. Like Bill Cosby was all flawed, but a likable character.
Sure.
Even the ambulance manager, that poor guy was just trying to scratch out a living, and he was up against insurmountable odds. So was he a nice guy? Did he do good things? No, but you could understand it in his circumstance, right? So, and of course, Raquel Welch's character was likable, and Harvey Keitel's character was likable. In MASH, I didn't find any of them likable, none of them. And so that's where I find it to be different. But story arc and all that's the same, just flat as a pancake.
It just seemed like the writers of this probably were ambulance drivers, and they just kind of had an idea of something they wanted to do. It wasn't. Same. Hannie, I other than a few, if I were to give Hannie Caulder a 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7.
Yeah, I put it right there too.
Yeah, I wasn't a real big on. Like I said, there were a few moments where I was like, okay, But another thing, like when her and Thomas were, like, they got into this town and they had an argument about her not seeking revenge. That was like a bullshit device to move the story forward. It seemed like it was forced. I didn't like the gunslinger. I do agree with you, the fact that there were characters that were way more interesting than Hannie, and throughout the brothers.
They were awesome. Yeah.
They were. If you want to if you haven't seen that movie, please see that movie. It is a good Western for the time.
Yeah.
The blood all looks like red paint. But, Fantastic Voyage, not the best vehicle for Raquel Welch. It's definitely
it's a B flick.
It's a B flick. Yeah. And then Mother Jugs and Speed. I like I said,
that's $20 you ain't gonna get back,
dude. And again, I swear
you can rent it. If one of our listeners wants to rent it, Tony's looking to make his $20 back.
Man, I got it. Well, well, there's a reason why you can't find it streaming.
Yeah.
No, it's like I agree with everything you say. It's just like Fantastic Voyage is a snapshot of the 60s. This is a snapshot of the 70s, especially 76. That was a linchpin moment in America anyway. So that's interesting.
That was the oil crisis. That was long gas lines.
Yeah, all that.
Nixon, the world
Vietnam.
changed. Yeah, the world changed right after that.
Yeah.
Because we went from that, and 4 or 5 years later, we were dancing in nightclubs and doing cocaine, as a country.
They were already, that was headed. Disco.
79 already. Yeah, it was already popular.
We should watch Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, shit.
That is an overly hyped movie. I did recently watch that.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it. But,
anyway.
So, Mother Jugs and Speed.
I give it a 2, 3.
I hate the fact that I loved it as a kid, and now I went back and watched it. I'm
you're a kid, of course. You didn't know. You got to see guys smoking pot in an ambulance and whatever. Yeah,
whatever. But I got to tell you, like I said, I swear to everybody out there, I'm not like it did change. I was like, God, if this is the way we treated women in the 70s, I am so sorry. I really am. I mean, I know.
Well, so once again, my point is, I think that the whole thing is a caricature, and there are people that did that.
Sure.
And I think you could go to Hollywood, and you're going to get that Devil Wears Prada attitude from some directors and some producers. Go to Hollywood. Go work in Hollywood as a beginning writer or a beginning actor. You are going to get treated like shit. Terrible. And to me, there's no difference. It's when we treated women that way, it was wrong, and we treat people like that today. It's wrong. That's all there is to it. So, So again, not everybody was like that for sure.
I was about to say at the time, people watched that movie and they're kind of like, huh. And we look back on and other people probably would look back on that movie now and say, here's the problem. I guarantee you, people are going to look at some of the movies that are made today and have issues with it the way I have issues with that one now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep,
the way certain people are portrayed in movies today is going to be a problem, just like that movie was back then.
Because they amplify all of it. They amplify because that's drama and that's what sells and da da da.
Yeah, but to your point exactly, Hannie Caulder, a movie, and I'm sure they were not trying to do this, found balance that movies nowadays can take a lesson from.
Yes, absolutely, especially in the character development side.
Yep.
So.
Yep, and the relationship between the two main characters, they were
great.
Different but equal. It was fantastic. And again, Robert Culp, guy from the Greatest American Superhero, which is a total schlock TV show. Man, I wish he would keep making movies like this. He'd be up there with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
he was amazing. So,
no doubt.
But any other thoughts?
My only other thought is let's go get brisket.
Oh, yeah. I made some brisket, folks. So hopefully it's all ready to go. And also, if anybody was curious, Lucy was here with us today.
Yes, if you heard the snoring, she's over here.
Man, she is so cute. Right now, she's totally crashed out.
Yep,
crashed. All right, everybody. That's another Analog Spectrum podcast
That's a wrap.
for you.
We're
going to wrap it up, and I hope you have a great day.
So ridiculous.
This has been an Analog Spectrum production and presentation. We appreciate you listening to our podcast. It means a lot to both me and Doug. As always, we're looking for topic suggestions, folks to interview, and friends to join us on the show. If you can help with any or all of these, go ahead and send a quick note to Analog Spectrum, that's all one word, at gmail.com. Are you curious about our past uploads? Go check out our website. You'll find the link in the description. Finally, for any cast you've enjoyed, please leave a comment and a review. For that last part, it would mean a lot to us if you'd make it 5 stars. And don't forget to share us with your friends and family. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day and spending time with us. There's nothing better than hanging out with you and all our friends in this crazy Analog Spectrum world.